was the genesis of this book?
Basically, I have told the same 4 to 5 stories at cocktail parties for the last 10 years, especially since I started working at People. The minute you come to People, and then you go out into the world, people hear what you do, hear where you work, and then they instantly say, like, okay, well, what's the craziest?
Who's the meanest?
Who's the meanest? They want to know the meanest. They want to know the worst. They want to know the best. And I kept trotting out the same 5 or 6 stories, beginning with the Mariska Hargitay one, and usually meandering to include the Tom Cruise one, and then sometimes wrapping up with Neil Patrick Harris. And so between those 3, I sort of realized I have stories about what I do, and I have stories about the celebrities I've encountered that I could probably get away with telling and not lose my job. Because that's the thing. Everybody in our industry who hears that I've written a book originally are like, well, but how did you, because if we really wrote about, the very, very worst or the most difficult or the, that could be problematic. But there are nevertheless incidents and anecdotes and encounters that I've had in which, honestly, the only person who comes off looking bad is me. So I figured, okay, well, why not see if I can turn a profit on those?
And I love your Tom Cruise story, because I do think that he's someone who, there's so many opinions of him, and he is actually, like, my experiences with him have been like A+.
I think anybody who's interviewed him, other than Matt Lauer, probably comes away thinking that he's a fantastic interview. And even Matt Lauer came back around and like showed up at some award thing that Tom got, or Tom gave an award to Matt. I don't even know, but even they, like, the pull is strong. The magnetism is pretty powerful. I think that were it not for his particular set of beliefs, he could have had a fantastic career in politics. He really could have, because certainly the ability that he has to make you feel like you are the only person in the room, the only person in the state, perhaps in the country, on the planet.
On the planet, yeah.
You are the only person who matters to him at all. It's intoxicating. It's really something. And, I'm aware that when I describe that and I try to explain it, it sounds A, cheesy, and B, like I am just such a pushover and such a wuss. But I really defy somebody to spend 90 minutes in a room with him, which is what I wound up doing. It was supposed to be a 45-minute interview, and he extended it. His publicist came in to check on him at one point, and he was like, nope, we're good, get out of here. And at the time, too, he was still with Katie. Katie was pregnant with Surrey at the time. So some of the subsequent sort of taint on his charisma hadn't quite set in yet. I mean, we were still post couch jumping and still post you're being glib, so I had a considerable amount of defenses up. But he was, it's, and the tricks are so simple, and so yes, I am easy, but, constant use of your name, constant eye contact, incredibly tactile, just touching your arm, touching your shoulder, that admittedly a little bit crazy, huge, raucous laughter at like even the most mildly humorous thing you might say. I don't know, man, you do 90 minutes of that, and by the end it was like, oh, okay, so Tom Cruise is in love with me. Like, that's clear. Tom Cruise wants to marry me, and here's how much of an idiot I was, actually. I'll just own this, and I put it in the book. At the end of the 90 minutes, Tom left, with Katie, actually. Katie arrived at the end of the interview, and the two of them left, and they went through, like, the kitchen of the hotel or something, because there was just no way for them to get out successfully. So, commoner that I am, I just went down to the lobby, and I'm waiting at the front of the hotel for my car to be brought around, and Tom's then publicist caught up with me and said, oh, wait, I'm glad I caught you. And at first, I braced myself like, okay, here we go. This is going to be the, like, make sure you don't use the part where he said the thing about the, some sort of, like, annoying negotiation. But instead, he was like, Tom, loved meeting you. I can't believe how much time you got. That was amazing. And so I'm thinking, okay, it was real. He really did. Yeah, that was something. And the publicist says, and actually, Tom was wondering what you were doing tomorrow. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm so going over to their house for dinner. Like, clearly, what's about to happen is I'm being invited over to the Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes spread for like a day of, I don't know, relaxation and board games and cupcakes or whatever. And so I said, well, I don't really have anything concrete. And the publicist says, well, Tom would love for you to take a tour of the Scientology Center if you might be interested. It takes a few hours, and that's where I kind of snapped out of it. And I said, you know what? No, I'm sorry. I'm not actually going to do that. Please thank Tom for me, but that's not going to be part of this experience. So, but it just, I was really the dummy standing there thinking like, oh, here it comes. Here comes his cell phone number.
Don't be hard on yourself. The last time I spoke to him, he remembered my kid's name, asked what grade he was in. I mean, this is Tom Cruise.
But he knew he was going to be seeing you that day, right? Okay, how's this? I have the 90-minute interview with him. 4 years pass. 4 years. I leave Good Housekeeping, which is the publication I had interviewed him for. I go to People magazine. I've been at People about 3 months at that point, and Tom agrees to do the cover of People via an interview with our then executive editor, Jess Cagle. Jess Cagle somehow negotiates it so that Tom comes to the People magazine offices to do the interview. So all Tom knows is, I'm going to People magazine to talk to my friend Jess Cagle, because Jess had interviewed him a bunch of times. Jess and Tom go way back, which is probably why Tom agreed to, do the cover. And I went to get lunch, and I'm waiting in the lobby with my little paper bag of Hale and Hearty soup, and all of a sudden, I felt the energy shift. Like, people were like, oh, wait, oh, shh. And and everyone still had BlackBerries too, so the BlackBerry photos used to make that annoying shutter clicky noise no matter what you did. And sure enough, I'm hearing clicky sounds, and I turn around, and there is Jess escorting Tom Cruise to our elevators. So I instantly fall back, and I'm like, oh, I'm staying well out of the way. This is my boss. A, this is his big moment. B, I'm not doing anything. But because Jess is the most amazing person on the planet, he spots me, and he's like, Kate, come on, get in the elevator with us. So I get in the elevator with Tom and Jess, and I say, Tom, I don't expect you to remember me, but 4 years ago, I interviewed you for the cover of Good Housekeeping, and I just wanted to say hello. It was one of the best interviews I've ever done, and hi. And he said, of course, I remember you. Yeah, right. No, you don't. They always say that, right? They always say, oh, sure, how have you been? How's it going? I mean, that's why Mariska Hargitay thinks I'm stalking her, because when she said that to me once, I was like, oh, you do remember? Okay, so remember that thing? You can't fall for it. And so he said, sure, I remember you. And I went, okay, well, it's great to see you, It's funny because Katie was still pregnant with Surrey at the time, and I've since gone on to have, I found out I was pregnant a month after that interview, and so I have kids roughly the same age as Surrey. And he looks at me and he says, oh, you have kids now? That's great. Your husband, he's a school teacher, right? And he used to play football, so he must be thrilled to have 2 boys in the house. Then he turns to Jess and says, you have to ask her how she and her husband met. It's an amazing story. They were camp counselors together when they were teenagers, and then they found each other again years later. What? What? I mean, this guy remembered my entire romantic history with my husband, what he does, what he did, how we met, how we broke up, how we got back together. It was, I'm honest, I can't even tell you what I said to him, because I really think I had a minor aneurysm. I was like, that's correct? It was insane. And he had no idea he was gonna be seeing me again. He had no idea. So, I mean, that's amazing. And everyone has always said to me, oh, well, that's some crazy Scientology mind trick. Okay, fine, I don't care. Whatever made it happen.
I'm with you as long as you're nice and kind and professional.
And he liked me enough to do a crazy Scientology mind trick on my info. Fine by me. Works for me.
What about Robert Downey? Because he features prominently in your book.
Well, he is my very first celebrity interaction. So when I started writing this book, I kind of professionally went through a list of, well, who are the celebrities that you've interviewed? So I was thinking, okay, the cover stories I've done, I did Tom Cruise, I did Winona Judd, I did, all these various, obviously Kate Gosselin has been a huge chunk of my life at People magazine. And, I was going through this sort of professionally themed list, and then I realized, dollar for dollar, in terms of encounters, one of the ones that was most significant was years before I worked at any place, anywhere, because I was only 13. And that was Robert Downey Jr. when I was 13 years old, was the first celebrity I ever laid eyes on. And this was during the era of Less Than Zero and Weird Science, and I mean very sort of disheveled and screwed up, and this is saying something about my taste in men, clearly, if at age 13 I was like, oh, he's the dreamiest, but I fully thought he was. And my mom and I were at an off-Broadway play called The Heidi Chronicles that a young actress named Sarah Jessica Parker had a small role in, and her boyfriend at the time was Robert Downey Jr. And he himself was essentially a character actor at the time. He was in no way a leading man. Andrew McCarthy was the leading man. He was, the screwed up sidekick. And we were standing at the end of the play, people were milling about, and there he is, standing there. And I grabbed my mom and I was like, oh, it's Robert Downey Jr., oh my God, I'm so in love with him. And my mom said, well, go ask him for an autograph. And I said, if you lost your mind, there's not walk. I was so very dedicated to being 13. So this was the lamest thing my mother possibly could have said. It was just, that's so stupid. I'm not going over there. And I said, what would I even say, Mom? And she said, you're going to tell him you love his work, that you love what he does, that you loved whatever that movie, I can't believe I let you see, was. You're going to tell him you loved that, and that you thought he was great, and that you just wanted to tell him that you're a big fan. And I said, oh, he's not going to want to hear that. And she gave me the advice that basically formed the backbone of my career, which is this. Every actor on the planet wants to be told how great you think they are. Every single one. There isn't one alive who will not, on some level, be okay with being told, I adore you and think you're amazing. And I thought, all right, well, if that's true, I probably have nothing to lose. I mean, he might still say no to an autograph, but at least I'll have, interacted with him. So I walked over there, and I was, just shaking and trying to, think about how I was going to go about this and approach him. But before I could say anything, he looked at me, saw me coming, and he went, oh, well, hello there. And I looked at him, and I said, I love you so much. It was literally the first words out of my mouth. And then I just kind of stammered, and I was like, I love you, your work. You were amazing in Less Than Zero, and I thought you were incredible, and could I have your autograph? And he said, well, sure, what's your name? And I said, I'm Katie, because I was Katie at the time. And he said, well, it's nice to meet you, I'm Robert, and held out his hand. So, class move to tell me his name like I didn't know what his name was. And gave me an autograph, and I clutched it and I walked away. And I looked down, and he had written, to Katie, I love you too, Robert Downey Jr. At which point, I learned something new about myself at age 13. I burst into tears. So if you ever see that footage of the Beatles when they performed at the Ed Sullivan Show, there are those girls in the audience who are screaming and yelling and just going mental. And then there's always that one other girl who's just standing there desperately sobbing, just sobbing. Turns out I'm that kind of girl. I'm the kind of girl who, when I'm super duper psyched, instead of shrieking with joy, I just start crying. And so I'm standing there, 13, braces, scrunchy in the hair, this is not a good look. And I'm crying, and I was like, and my mom is like, are you okay? And I'm like, we have to get out of here right now. So we're moving with the crowd out onto the street, and of course, I'm looking down at the autograph, and I'm shaking, and I'm like, and what do I do but headbutt Robert Downey Jr. right in the back, who's now right in front of me. And he spun around, and he saw me, and now my eyes are slits, and my nose is running, and I'm and he did look at me, and he was like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. The play really got to me. It was really an amazing show. Luckily, it is a very emotional play, so I could kind of pull it off. And he was like, okay, you take care. And I pulled it together by the time my mom and I got into a cab to go home. But it was a precedent. It was a precedent that, clearly I was designed to go out into the world and tell celebrities that I loved them and their work. And I didn't care what sort of fool I made out of myself in service of that goal. clearly there have been more incidents in which I have made a fool out of myself, but I have not cried. I can at least say that I have not burst into tears in front of anyone else.
And honestly, you have to be a fan to do what we do. You can't approach this job from any other place. Otherwise, you're just like this jaded, bitter, angry person, and no one wants to read what you have to say.
Right, and you go into it jaded and bitter and angry, and then you feel like you're too cool or you're too good for this. You know, when I worked at Page Six, I would cross paths occasionally with, folks who thought that working on a gossip column was beneath them, or covering events was beneath them, or this was so stupid and so manufactured. And I just thought, well, then go work somewhere else. I mean, yes, it's true. More than once at People, my previous boss, Larry Hackett, when we would start to get very heated about, somebody's divorce or somebody's baby being born or the details of a marriage coming together or falling apart, and we would get a little too angsty, Larry would say, guys, it's not the Pentagon Papers. Like, don't worry about it. And it's true. No, we're not toppling regimes. We're not affecting huge sea changes. But if you're not down with what we are doing, then there's plenty of other aspects of journalism to go into. If you're going to go into this, yeah, be a fan, or not of every single person you cover, but of the genre as a whole, of entertainment reporting and entertainment journalism, or else, honestly, what's the point?
And I did hard news for a number of years, and trust me, this is way more fun.
Oh,
way more fun.
I mean, working in the New York Post newsroom, I saw the Metro desk. I saw what they were doing, and it's like, yeah, you go cover that plane crash. I'll be at Mumbai, seeing who Leonardo DiCaprio is sleeping with tonight. That's fine. Off you go.
Mumbai, nice one.
Mumbai,
My
right?
God, that
gonna take you right back. Bungalow 8, sure. Yeah, those are.
Is Marquee still open?
God, you're asking me?
Back in I actually had to go to Marquee one night, and who was I supposed to? This is way before Bieber, but maybe 15. I can't remember, but I had to see if someone famous showed up. It was a specific person, and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I mean, half the time that was the gig, was going to Mumbai or Bungalow 8 and just waiting around to see who showed up. That was the item. He showed up, and then ideally who he brought with him, and then because it was Page Six, who he canoodled with, who he semi-impregnated in a corner. That's what you were looking for. And people would say to me, well, how do you go up to them to get items? And I was like, go up to? What do you think? I'm not going up to anyone. I'm staying at my table, and I'm watching them like a hawk, and there's no way I'm going up to them. Forget it.
What's been your most surreal experience around celebrities? For me, it was the Vanity Fair, going to the Vanity Fair Oscar party, where it's wall to wall, and you just... I remember I was trying to get to the bar, and I'm like, oh, sorry, Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Well, the Oscars every year, I mean, one of the best things about our access to the Oscars is that we get passes to the bar, to the ground floor bar. So no matter where your seats are, each level has a bar, but the ground floor bar is only for people sitting in the first rows of seats, and those lucky few who have a credential
and that's
to go to
where
that
everyone
bar.
loses. Once they leave, they go to the bar and
Loses,
they have a drink.
is waiting for their category, is waiting until they go up to present. They all just park themselves at the bar. And so, yeah, that's completely heady when you're just standing there and it's as soon as Sandra Bullock's done ordering her drink, can I get a Cosmo? You stand there. It's also... there's a party every year before the Emmys that People is one of the co-sponsors of, the MPTF party, creatively called The Night Before. Guess when it takes place?
The night before.
The night before the Emmys. And as one of the co-sponsors, no press is allowed. We're the only ones allowed there. And because we foot part of the bill, there's a VIP reception beforehand that celebrities are present at, and event organizers bring celebrities over to us, the mere editors, so that, I don't know, they can thank us for throwing the party. I don't know what the idea is, but it is truly like a celebrity petting zoo. You're standing there, and some lady in a suit is like, I have George Clooney for you, and leads him over to you, and you're like, come on over, George Clooney.
I won't bite, I promise.
You can eat out of my hand. That's completely surreal. That's so strange. But honestly, after years and years of that, you do get a little bit oh, sure, yeah, you have George. I mean, I will refrain from using names, but at that party about a year ago, a fellow editor At one point, someone came by and was like, I have so-and-so for you. And the editor was like, no, not again this year. I did him last year. He's deadly. I can't talk to him. Here, you take him. And I was like, are we really doing this? Are we really like playing like hot potato with a total A-lister who's like, I don't want to talk to him, you talk to him. I mean, that's how jaded you can kind of get, where it's like, you know that someone is lethally dull in conversation, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, you talk to him. I can't bear to talk to this person who
And remember, like, your first day
won
on
a
the
bunch of
job, you'd
awards.
be excited to, like, get a
I'd be
third-string reality star.
Oh, my God, of course.
And you are the savant of The Bachelorette, by the way.
Of The Bachelorette and The Bachelor, but none so much when you talk about reality as Kate Gosselin, of course, and all her many children, and that whole world. And that actually dovetails nicely, because that was my most surreal moment. Was I covered the Kate implosion, that marriage falling apart, very, very, very closely. I was
So you were in
practically
Pennsylvania.
there. I was in Pennsylvania in her home the morning after they told the kids that the marriage was over. The next morning. And even I was a little bit like, should I be here right now? Like, people are looking a little like sad at breakfast. Like, why? Like, we could have waited a few more days, but she wanted to hash it out. She wanted to talk, and yeah, she wanted her cover. She got a cover basically, and they sold. I mean, she's been money in the bank for a very long time, and I spent a whole day with her. And I remember she kept saying, like, well, the paparazzi are going to be hiding out over there, and the paparazzi this and that. And I thought, this lady, come on. I'm looking around. There's no paparazzi. Like, what is she? She's nuts. And I got back to my desk the next day, and one of our news editors was like, oh, hey, you got papped yesterday. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, look. And the paparazzi, the agencies will write their own captions for the photos to try to make them seem more appealing. Which is why you'll get like exclusive photo set, so-and-so appears to be pregnant, when they just had a big lunch, because that's a more appealing caption that will maybe drive up the price. So all of a sudden, Mary Green, our news editor, is showing me this set of photos, and the caption is like, Kate Gosselin hires personal assistant in the midst of marriage crisis, because I was carrying like a package into her house in one of the shots. And then another set of them speculated that Kate Gosselin hires personal security, because apparently I look like a bodyguard, which made me fully reconsider that outfit that I had worn that day. I was like, whoa. Clearly the jeans and the hoodie was not the best choice, because I looked like a bodyguard on some level. But that was just so, and she'd been right all day. She was like, no, they're probably behind those trees. No, they're over there in that ditch. And I was like, she's delusional. No, she wasn't. No, she knew. She just knew. And that's actually probably the most surreal, was like looking at images of myself with a story being created to go with it, and feeling so naive, because I actually said out loud, but that's not true. Like, really?
Now
Where
it's
do
like,
I
that's-
work?
yeah.
Like, I don't know that sometimes stuff that's not true gets spun, but I did have this moment of be like, oh, but that's false.
I'm not her security
I'm not her security guard. Yeah, but such is life.
Well, and before we go to the audience, I have to tell you a funny little thing. I got papped once with Hugh Grant, and the caption was Hugh Grant and his new mystery lady, and I was like, God, I
Oh,
only
but see,
wish.
that is
I
awesome.
wish.
At least you weren't like his bodyguard. Clearly, like, nobody was saying that I was like Kate Gosselin's lesbian lover. Like, I got none of that. I would love to be somebody's mystery lady. That would be fantastic. That's like on a bucket list of mine, is to get labeled as a
And now
mystery lady.
now I need to find that picture.
Oh, you fully need to find that picture.
That sucker.
Absolutely.
All right. Let us hear your question, sir.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for being
Hi,
here.
thanks.
So in journalism, it always seems like there's a story that can end up on the cutting room floor in the trash just because of breaking news or whatever takes precedence. I was wondering what for you was one story that just never really got out there that you wish did.
It's interesting. One of the stories, at People especially, we almost never just fully cut a story. It'll run. It won't be the cover anymore, or it won't be as prominent as it once was. Things get bumped off the cover a lot. And this is going to make me sound like I have completely the wrong priorities. I understand why this decision occurred, and it absolutely needed to occur, and I'm glad that it happened. But we had an exclusive with Jenny Garth, of all people, formerly of 90210, who was married to an actor named Peter Facinelli, who just brutally dumped her, like right before her 40th birthday. Was like, see ya, I'm out of here. And she gave us one of those interviews that was just like, oh my God, like, your publicist is going to kill you, because she was candid and unfiltered and raw and hurt and angry. And I mean, it was gold. It was really, really, really amazing. And for me, on the entertainment side of things, the kind of stuff that comes along very, very rarely, especially from somebody who's not like a reality star. I mean, she's an actress who generally would spin things quite a bit. And I mean, this was really heavy duty stuff. And we had to run it the week that we had it for. It had to go that week because she was getting ready to go do a press tour, and we were smart enough to know everything that she said to us was going to be everywhere the following week. So we had to do it that week. And then the week that we were like all set to do it, Trayvon Martin happened. And this is one of the beautiful things about People, is that it's not a pure celebrity magazine. It's half human interest, half celebrity. And so when something like Trayvon Martin happens, we have the ability to make it the cover, and we did make it the cover, which was the correct decision. But because we did that and we made it very prominent, especially when a cover is kind of heavy duty and serious, we pull way back on the second covers, meaning those little insets. We don't inset a lot of stuff. We kind of let the cover speak for itself. We just did that this past week with Orlando. We don't do a lot of additional stuff. And so the Jenny Garth story just got eclipsed. I don't think, I did no promotion for it. It barely got read. It didn't get a lot of pickup. I don't think to this day anybody is ever like, remember that time that Jenny Garth just went like ballistic on her? Like, and so I always have a little bit of sadness, like whenever I always feel sad that she's gone on with her life and is so happy and whole and good. When I had this fantastic, opening a vein story from her that most of the world didn't get to see. She is quite happy and healthy and whole now, by the way. She got remarried to a lovely man, and so all is right with Jenny Garth, but I was there when it was not, and most people don't know
the one that got away.
It is.
Next question, please.
How's it going, Kate?
Hi, good.
When writing the book, did you ever have to fight with any publicists about what you can and cannot put in the book?
No, because I didn't tell a single one. Honestly, because that is a little bit like, there's a feeling of I'd rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. And that is also the truth. I don't need permission to tell any of these stories because they're mine. It's my experience from interviewing them. But also because publicists, understandably, are always somewhere around DEFCON 2 in terms of like, wait, why are you calling me? What's wrong? What's the problem? What's the, And I sort of felt like even if in advance I was like, I am telling you right now, there is nothing bad about your client in this chapter, in this book. They look great. I look like a ninny who like made an ass out of myself in an interview, but they look great. Their suspicions would have stayed high, and they would have been like, I don't know, explain to me this. And it's like, no, I didn't need to hold their hand. I didn't need to walk them through this. I knew the book would speak for itself, that they would read the chapters, if they're so inclined, that they would see what it is. It's funny, because the Mariska Hargitay chapter, a newspaper, and I won't get into it, kind of did like a quickie synopsis of what happened with me and Mariska, and they pretty thoroughly misrepresented it. And I did hear from Mariska's publicist, like, what exactly did you write? And I was like, no, please read the book. You have to actually read the chapter. And so, I made sure the book got into her hands, and but I've had absolutely no fears that anybody who actually reads their chapter in their book will have a single issue, because if anything, their clients all look exceedingly gracious and patient and kind, and quite understanding of the failings of a young journalist.
And we have time for one more question, please.
Okay, thanks
Hi.
for being here. Which celebrities do you wish to interview next?
Well, my white whale, no pun intended in terms of size, is Jennifer Aniston, because she is somebody who I wanted the entire time that I was at Good Housekeeping. She would never do the cover. We've interviewed her a bunch of times for People magazine, but it's never fallen to me. I don't know, frankly, if I ever will get to interview her, but I've never even met her. I've never even exchanged words with her. And that to me is just glaring. I'm a little bit obsessed with, like, sooner or later, I've got to get
It'll
in the same
happen.
room with her. You know, so she's like the big celebrity. The other person who I really want to meet is Joss Whedon, of, for me, Buffy fame, because his mother was my high school teacher. And I adored her, and she was amazing, and she died quite suddenly my senior year of high school, was killed in a car accident, which, in fact, I believe informed a very famous Buffy episode. I'm just geeking out on y'all now, but a very famous Buffy episode in which Buffy's mother just dies suddenly, no real advance warning. And it's funny because I watched that episode and I was like, I know where that's coming from. I know how he lost his mom because that's how I lost her as my high school mentor, my high school teacher. I adored her, I loved her, and so it's a little bit stunning to me that I've never met Joss and I've never been able to say, your mother was a tremendous influence on me, she was incredible. So I'm holding that one in my back pocket, waiting
Hopefully
for when I meet him.
he'll see the book and he'll watch this. And hi, Joss.
Joss, call
So,
me.
I'm Your Biggest Fan is out now in stores. It
It
came out
is.
yesterday.
It came out last Tuesday, actually.
Oh, last Tuesday. Oh,
Last
okay.
Tuesday, yeah. So there's just so many copies laying around by now, so.
Go pick one up.
My mother has like moved it down to the main floor at Barnes & Noble in every single one, so just, you can find it easily.
Thank you so much,
Of
Kate.
course, thank you.